Certainly, I came to talk a bit about food security, but the acute focus of it in this region. So I opened discussing the challenge we're all aware of, which is by 2050 we need about 70% more food in the world to feed humanity. However, we need to do so with a declining resource base, less arable land, the effects of climate change, and declining water all over the world, fresh water. So as that, I then said, let's double click on that problem in the Middle East where it's uniquely acute. And in the Middle East, our population will double about every 24 years. That's one generation, double the people to feed. And historically, this region's been oil wealthy and been able to export its wealth and import its food. And I believe that's going to be a challenge in a post-oil world. So the government needs solutions toward food security, water conservation, economic diversification, and towards sustainability. And I believe the solution that Pure Harvest Smart Farms offers that. So I used our company as kind of a focal point to tell that narrative. Well, I would say what it was last year was capital. It was very hard to convince people to do this. I mean, right, because one of the challenges is it's industrial IoT, and historically hardware, they always say hardware is hard. It's very true. But particularly in this region, where a lot of the technology investment is still to date in what I'd call, Web 1.0 industries. It's internet-enabled businesses and e-commerce, and that's almost all the lion's share of the money. So having a new business in a hardware or IoT industry was quite hard, let alone it was in ag, traditionally a government-influenced and not seen as a profitable or sexy sector, and also it was in very asset-intensive, so we needed to raise a lot of money. That was super challenging, but once we got across that hurdle, the new challenge this year has been that what we're doing is so unique. There are incredible challenges in sourcing all of the things we need. Everything from wanting to source sustainable packaging, that was a real challenge. And packaging has been a real challenge. Another was even things like our core raw material inputs, one of which is iron. Sourcing extremely high quality iron that we need to use to feed the nutrients to the plants. Well, the quality of the iron in the region has been historically so low that it gums up our system and it impacts our irrigation, our recirculation. So these very micro challenges you wouldn't experience until you're operating. So as they always say, the devil's in the details, and we're living through those devil details now. But despite that, we're overcoming it and making incredibly high quality food, which we're selling into some of the best kitchens in the country and now into some of the best retailers. I think the need is huge. I mean, even since when I started this project, the UAE, for instance, has formed a new cabinet ministry, the Ministry of Future Food Security. So the siren bells of food and water security have gotten so loud that I think there's incredible tailwinds supporting our business, but also this entire industry, and something we so wholeheartedly believe in, which is more resource efficient food production and food sourcing for the region. So they are targeting waste, which is a big problem, particularly in this country. Also more or less wasteful production or more efficient production for higher quality, safer, better food. So I think it's a very good time to both be a consumer in this country. The next several years will be a lot brighter than the last, to be a chef or anybody involved in the food industry. But I think also for anyone who's in this industry or surrounding it, even the people who ultimately sell robotics that are used to clean the glass of solar panels will have a market in this emerging industry that is controlled environment ag. And we're literally being pulled into every country. I mean, we're being asked by Saudi, Bahrain, Oman, because all of these countries have a need for this. And we hope to be there to be part of delivering that solution, and really to be just kind of one of the first, right? To be the innovator that then others follow us in, because that's what will be good for consumers and good for the country and ultimately good for the world when other parts of the world begin to adopt this controlled environment ag movement. And climate change is making more places have those challenges, right? Traditionally, food is grown around the world and heavily saturated in Mediterranean climates, but everywhere else is not a Mediterranean climate, right? So even now, controlled environment ag is being adopted in places like Russia in a big way. Russia wanted food security away from Europe due to political reasons. And however, when they invested in that, they've now built thousands of hectares of food production, and they are growing year-round high-quality food outside of Moscow. Now, sometimes there's environmental or resource efficiency challenges of some of those initiatives, but fundamentally, it wasn't much better shipping it from Europe, right? And they're burning now their natural gas. They get control of their own fate, control of currency impacts on food, because food is such a fundamental need. It shouldn't be politicized, right? It is fundamentally, because it's such a big industry. But if we can give these countries a say in their own fate, and not just the leadership, but also the people and the private sector, I think that's a big thing. And I think the technologies that are emerging in food, and why this whole conference, right, is about food manufacturing and the FoodTech Summit, I think what's happening over the last several years and what will happen over the next 10 will help us tackle that big challenge of food security of 2050 and feed people better with greater variety and create a lot of exciting jobs. You know, not the traditional challenging farmer in the field. The new farmer looks like this, right? And so I think it's an interesting job. Well, I'm optimistic that if we get this right, we have a number of investors approaching us that are very, very large toward providing the capital. The hurdle that we had last year is becoming not a hurdle this year. That's always a good sign, right? When you overcome something and then it becomes easy in the future, there's a lot of interest, and we're very hopeful that we will remove the capital barrier from what we think is an undeniable investment opportunity, but also need, right? And I think that I've said this before about this business, that what I love about it is that what's good for my bottom line is good for the world, but in a real sense. So for example, when we source solar power or we source cheaper carbon locally and eat carbon, yes, that's great for our carbon footprint and sustainability, but also it lowers my cost structure. Because when I'm importing carbon from Kuwait or Saudi like I am today, that's adding a lot of cost in transportation cost and a key raw material input. And I can go down any piece of the business where fundamentally what's good for the world, and another example, pesticide. We don't want to use pesticide, it costs money. Whereas my beneficial insects, my little army, can go attack bugs and then come back, rest, and do it again, right? They're reusable. And so they're much more resource efficient, and they're better because the food has no pesticide residue, right? So these are the types of things that make us passionate about this business. And I think the opportunity over the next year is to take that capital, scale, and really show everyone what's possible and really get into everybody's bellies, right? Fundamentally, we're in the business of filling bellies, and our hope is to do more of those bellies here, Saudi, Oman, Bahrain, around the region. Gulfood came at a great time for us. We're actually looking immediately right now into food automation technologies for our packaging solutions, for instance, which are currently far more manual than we want them to be, and with capital free, incredibly more efficient, help our food safety and our total quality management. So there were solutions here that we could find and engage with suppliers immediately. I also thought it was a great format and summit to talk about food tech and talk as a food tech entrepreneur about the types of things that are out there, and hopefully get some of these larger corporates excited. I see a lot of excitement though. I've seen some really interesting robotics and other innovation here. So I think people are getting it. And I think maybe this conversation was even more relevant 2 years ago because people are really catching on. But I hope to, with our little company, show people what's possible, right? We have what was previously thought impossible. Just April, we now have this farm that endured the weather of August and has grown perfect year-round, incredibly high-quality produce, which literally a lot of people have talked about, but nobody's done. And now we've done it. And I hope to come and share that with people. So it was a great forum and opportunity to do that, and I'm thankful to the leadership of the conference for having us speak.